Good afternoon, ladies and gents. It is I, Doodleman149, and today I'll be bringing you a calm and informative video on the changes we've received for Season 3 of Warzone that launched on April 22nd. I've got quite a bit to go over, so forgive me if this video runs a little long. There's a lot to get through. Some good, some really bad, and some that are neither. So, without further delay, let me hop right into the most noticeable change that this season brings, and that is map changes. While I wasn't there live for the nuclear event that went off in Verdansk, my squadmate Freaky Haircut was on the scene and let me know what happened to all the operators in Verdansk when things went down. He tells me the zombie problem Verdansk has been facing for a while now eventually became too much as operators fell and changed. The only option that seemed to remain was a joint nuclear strike on the stadium in an effort to eliminate the threat. I personally feel this was a little bit of overkill, considering all the times my squad and I visited Verdansk. Not once did we encounter any of the undead. The threat seemed to be extremely well contained, so this strike seems to not be there to eliminate the threat, but rather to cover up whatever caused these creatures in the first place. You can also participate in the launching of the nuke that destroys Verdansk in a limited time mode. A mode that will probably be gone by the time this video comes out, and the new 1980s Verdansk will be out. I don't quite understand why this choice was made to go to the 80s, because I'm not sure if the company knows this, but that's not how nukes work. And why go backwards, except to explain the Cold War operators, which then creates the issue of explaining how Modern Warfare operators are in Verdansk now. This story they're concocting is just so convoluted, I won't give it any more time. The lobby here mentions that Rebirth Island is dealing with nuclear fallout, and the map is now only playable in a nighttime mode, which I think is great. I do have a question, however. How is Rebirth dealing with nuclear fallout? Was San Francisco hit by a nuke? I feel like they're trying to imply that the event in Verdansk somehow affected Alcatraz Island in the San Francisco Bay. It doesn't make any logical sense, but this game hasn't made any sense since the introduction of Cold War, so I guess this is par for the course. I feel it's also worth mentioning that there is a limited time event regarding the location of Adler, a Cold War character who has apparently disappeared in the new, underwhelming Cold War storyline for Warzone. Whoopee. Now we move on to some general changes that have happened to the game in, well, general. As you can see here, it is stated that end match open mics are disabled for modes with infinite respawns like the Royale Rumble mode, which is terrible anyway. I guess the devs were tired of getting verbally destroyed in the end of game open mics after their terrible performances. This next part is, for me, the worst part of the new season, so be prepared for a lengthy spiel about it. All the ground war loot in Warzone is now Cold War weaponry. Not a single piece of Modern Warfare hardware is anywhere on the map. Are you serious? I fucking knew it! The Cold War integration was never an integration. It was always here as a replacement. It was a damned invasion. Now is the time these stupid fucking companies need to implement a classic Warzone mode. There are plenty, and I mean plenty of people who hate the Cold War integration. Honestly, not that there was much Modern Warfare content left in this game mode last season, but that doesn't excuse the blatant removal of the game that made this fucking mode what it is. Warzone used Modern Warfare's engine, it uses its mechanics, its gimmicks, its vehicles, but nah, let's just fucking delete every trace of the game that made Warzone what it is. Fuck you, Crack Division. All of you of that damned company can suck my fucking dick. Now, granted, you can still get your Modern Warfare weapons from loadouts, but I think it's despicable and disrespectful to remove all Modern Warfare guns from a mode that was born from them. On top of that, the only blueprints that will be available in Warzone are going to be legendaries. So I'll be saying goodbye to my ground loot motorcade, the purple LC-10, the souvenir, the blue Pellington, basically every rare or epic gun loot you can find aren't likely to be available anymore. A new sniper has been added to the game, the Swiss K31 sniper rifle at tier 15, and you all know how I feel about those Swiss weapons. We also have a new SMG added, the PPSH-41 SMG, unlocked at tier 31 of this new Battle Pass. Speaking of the Battle Pass, again, there is nothing exciting here, so I won't be buying this Battle Pass either. I haven't bought any of the Cold War Battle Passes, and this season is no different. All I want are the 80s music tracks for vehicles, but luckily those are free anyway. And lastly, Semtexes are now a guaranteed down if you stick an enemy with them, something that should have been the case this entire time, and apparently Thermite was bypassing wusses who use riot shields, but apparently that is no more. Next up, there are a huge number of weapon balancing changes that have been made to the game, so bear with me as I go through each and give you my thoughts on them. The Cold War AK-47 has received a recoil buff, so now it should be easier to control. I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing, as I cannot think of one time I fought someone using an AK-47, whether that be from Cold War or not. This may add a little more weapon variety to a game mode that severely needs it. The Pharah 83, so far a weapon that I do not care for, had its minimum damage buffed from 25 to 26, which literally makes no difference when it comes to the weapon's time to kill values. The max damage has been nerfed from 33 to 31, meaning that now you'll need to land one more bullet to get a kill in Warzone. This isn't a terrible thing, because if I remember correctly, this weapon has a decent rate of fire, so one bullet probably won't be making a huge difference. The weapon's max range has been boosted by 17%, so I guess that makes up for the damage nerf a little bit. The recoil has also been buffed, so it's also easier to control. The Pharah has never been used against me in Warzone, so I can't speak for its effectiveness too much, but it seems like they wanted to make this weapon more viable at mid-range by reducing recoil and extending its damage range. I really have no idea why they buffed its minimum damage, since it literally changes nothing though. Next we have the FFAR. Well, they nerfed its max damage from 30 to 27, meaning that it'll take one more shot up close to get a kill. Again, with this weapon's high fire rate, I don't see that as a problem for it. Its max range has been nerfed by 15%, a welcome change. The neck multiplier and upper chest multipliers have been reduced from 1.1 to just 1, meaning that neck shots and chest shots now have no multiplier essentially. Also, its ADS speed has been further decreased. Honestly, I'm happy with these changes. Unlike the nonsense ADS speed nerfs of certain attachments from the past, now the weapon's base speed has been nerfed along with its damage and range. The damage isn't a huge change by itself, but apparently Cold War guns have neck multipliers, which seems odd, but if it's dealing less damage, then I'm good with that. The Groza is up next, and its changes are literally all nerfs. The recoil has been nerfed, the ADS speed has been nerfed, and the weapon's upper chest multiplier dropped from 1.3 to a 1.1. They state that this is precautionary, but honestly, I barely see people using the Groza as it is. After this, I bet I'll see it even less. I'm all for nerfing Cold War weapons, don't get me wrong, but this one, at least for the moment, feels unwarranted. Opposite the Groza, the Krig 6, probably my favorite Cold War gun when I was actually playing that dumpster fire, has received a number of buffs. The headshot multiplier has been buffed from 1.4 to 1.5, the bizarre neck multiplier has been buffed from 1 to 1.3, and lastly, all torso shots were buffed from a 1 to a 1.1 multiplier. I rarely see the Krig being used in Warzone, probably because it has a fairly lackluster time to kill value, but with these buffs, we might just be seeing more of it out there. The QBZ-83 also received only buffs. Its general movement speed has been increased, its ADS strafe speed got a buff, this gun's neck multiplier went from 1 up to 1.2, and the upper chest multiplier went from 1 to 1.1. Seems that as the meta weapons got nerfed, non-meta weapons are getting a bunch of buffs. Let's just hope this doesn't create the same issue with a new paint job. The LC-10, one of my best ground loot weapons in Warzone, got a bullet velocity buff. I guess that was needed, I don't really know. The MAC-10 had its max damage reduced by 1. I don't know what it was before, but keep those nerfs coming. The Pellington, or should I call it the Smellington because it's trash, received an ADS speed buff and a raise time nerf. In case you don't know what raise time refers to, it's whenever you switch from another weapon or gadget to the Pellington. It's basically slower to equip now. I didn't really feel that the ADS speed buff was necessary since it's already very fast. Too bad it's trash everywhere else though. Now we get into a couple of beefy ones. The Cold War AUG, which they keep referring to as Tactical Rifle Charlie because they don't think we're smart enough to be able to differentiate between the average Modern Warfare SMG and the godly Cold War Burst Rifle, got some hefty nerfs. It received a 33% buff to its burst delay, meaning it's less spammy, and the weapon's neck multiplier dropped from 1.8 to 1.3. Now this seems like a good thing. The weapon is slower to spam, and one damage area has been nerfed. However, how often are neck shots even factoring into a kill? If the headshot multiplier stays at 1.8, I don't think this damage nerf will have done anything substantial. The M16 received a similar treatment. Its burst delay was buffed by 10%, also leading to it being less spammable, and its neck multiplier went from 1.8 way down to 1.1. The way I look at this is that the Cold War AUG has been turned into a high damage, slower firing burst weapon, while the M16 is now the spammier, lower damage burst weapon. I'm glad they finally did something to differentiate these two from one another, and this seems like a fine balance between the two. Now, if only the FR556 would get a faster firing cousin, then I'd be really happy. On top of all these tac rifle nerfs, all the barrels that increase the rate of fire for the AUG and the M16 have received heavy, and I mean heavy, like over 50% in most cases, nerfs to their fire rate boosts. I'm glad to hear that. And lastly, for weapon nerfs, the Psychov continues to get pounded into the ground. The full auto barrel has received yet another nerf in the form of its minimum damage dropping from 23 all the way down to 19. This means that for standard multiplayer and ground war, the weapon goes from a 5-shot kill at its furthest damage range to a 6. This isn't a big deal because obviously the rate of fire is so damned high in the first place. However, this does cause more issues for Warzone. With this nerf, it went from an 11-shot kill up to a 14-shot kill. This still isn't a huge change, but at longer ranges, hitting your target is going to be harder, so it'll definitely feel like way more than 14 bullets are needed to down someone. If you're brave enough to try running the auto barrel with the Akimbo perk, then you're in for a very bad time. The minimum damage there went from 19 to 14. Taking that into Warzone, instead of the already terrible 14 shots to kill, now even harder with the Akimbo perk, now it'll take 18 shots to kill. That's just brutal at that point. I felt like the Psychov was in an okay place after the hefty speed nerfs, but Warzone seems to be trying extremely hard to make this weapon only viable in literally point-blank engagements. And that'll do it for the weapon nerfs. I'd say the guns I hate most in Warzone got some reasonably strong nerfs, and I'm glad to see it. I feel the Psychov nerf was a bit much, and the Groza nerf just seems unwarranted, but hey, I'm all for a slower TTK in this game. The final thing of note for this Season 3 update was that the Rose skin is now more visible than it was previously. There was a strong call from the community for Crack Division to nerf this skin because of just how hard it was to see her on many areas of the map. However, the nerf they applied to her doesn't seem to be doing too much. She now has some more gadgets that hang off her person, giving her a larger profile in general, but in terms of color, she only seems to have some new dark blue shoulder pads. I don't know about you, but dark blue doesn't show up that well in darkness. Plus, she seems to be a tone lighter in terms of her suit's black coloring, but it really isn't that much. I knew this was going to be something hard to do, so I'll at least give them credit for trying something, even if it isn't ultimately going to do anything. And that, folks, will wrap up my coverage of the changes made to Warzone for Season 3. We got a new map, some new guns, the removal of Modern Warfare guns from ground loot, a ton of weapon balancing changes, and the most hated guns in Warzone got some hefty nerfs that I think will promote more variety, and some underused or never used weapons got some buffs, so hopefully that'll give players a reason to use them. The Psychov continues to get destroyed, and since it's a Modern Warfare weapon, I'm just going to go ahead and say they're doing it dirty on purpose. Rose got a slight nerf, so hopefully we'll see more operator variety, but I wouldn't hold my breath. I'm really glad you all stuck around this long, and I'm happy to announce that I really quickly broke through the 200 subscriber mark recently. I'd really like to give you all a round of applause for putting some faith in me as a creator, and I really appreciate it. You're all the best, and I'm glad I've come to know a good number of you. Thank you all again. I've been your host, Doodleman149. You all have been awesome, and I will see you later.